In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I greet you, my beloved brothers and sisters in the the reality is that all of us, in one form or another, are in trouble because we are not, as a people, able to have that level, that degree of self-determination where we have the independence to be able to do the things and to be the people that we were created to be, do the things that we are able to do because of the constraints and the restraints and the suppression of living under despotic regimes. I know, some of you think that you're free where you are at the present time. And because you've got a fairly, nice bank account or a nice car or a nice apartment or a nice home or whatever it is that you currently are in possession of, you may be under the illusion that you are free, living under somebody else's system, living under somebody else's idea of democracy, etc., etc. What I'm suggesting humbly is that none of us are actually in that position that we think that we're in. I think it was our great brother, Robert Nesta Marley, Bob Marley, who said, you think you're in heaven, but you're living in hell. And this is the reality, dear family. Hence why we are saying this is the final call. It's very, very important that we understand that there is a man living among us today on our planet who is sending out a call, sending out a warning, sending out guidance for us in particular, humanity in general, that's saying, heed the call, because where we are currently in this world, very specific world, not the globe, not the planet, so to speak, but in terms of a world with a political, social, economic idea and concept of itself, where we are in this world is in a very precarious state, in a very precarious condition. And so, dear family, what I'm suggesting to us is that we need to heed the call. We need to understand that there is things that we could do, should do, must do in order to change the current condition of the original man and woman, of the black man and woman on our planet today, if we are to survive the dark days ahead. There are some very, very dark days ahead. Many of us are already experiencing those dark days because they're here right now with us. We may not appreciate it. We may think that the war in Ukraine is isolated to Ukraine and Russia at the present time, but it really is not. It is a global war. It is a war that will spread. It is a third world war. It is the war of Armageddon. As the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan told us in no uncertain terms, that this war of Armageddon, as predicted in the scriptures of the Bible, has already begun. This is the time period in which we live, dear brothers and sisters. So I pray that you are all good. I pray that you are all right. And I pray that you will, call a family member, tell a friend to tune in at this time to the Image and Nation show, because we are live and direct, and we want to share with you some of the life-giving teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Dear brothers and sisters, let's just do this so that you can see where we are. I hope you're all good. Dear family, this is where we are. Welcome to episode 81 of the Image and Nation show. The title, as I said before, is This is the Final Call. And we are just going to talk briefly this evening about this subject matter, and then we will, move on to next week in terms of 82 and a different subject. But we just wanted to stay in the mold of the minister's 90th birthday and really have a look at this subject matter, because we think it's very, very important. And when I was attempting to do the show last week and we were, interrupted by the problems with the internet, I did use this analogy of when you're in the airport and they say final call for flight 862 or whatever the number of the flight. Final call for flight 862. You know what you do under those circumstances. You know that you don't hang around. You know that that's time to pick up your bags and start making your way to that departure gate, because if you don't, the gate will close, dear family, and you will miss that flight. You will not make it to your destination. This is why the flagship newspaper of the Nation of Islam, the #1 black newspaper on planet Earth today, with pure, unadulterated truth on all of its pages, this is why it's called the final call, because that's what the time dictates, dear brothers and sisters. And so with that, Sister Claudia is with us. Did you want to say anything?
Assalamu alaikum, family. Welcome again to another edition of Image and Nation. We thank you for joining us, taking the time out. We know that you may be at work or sitting in the sun, but we really honor your time to take your time out to spend the evening, afternoon, or morning, wherever you are on the planet Earth. We're really grateful for your time. So thank you once again.
Yes, and please let us know where you
Yes,
are.
where you are.
Let us know where you are, dear family, because it's always nice to hear where the brothers and sisters are tuning in.
That's
from.
right.
Did you want to read anything in
Well,
particular?
this was an article from the Final Form newspaper, and this is what our brother, our late brother, may Allah be pleased with him, Harry Belafonte, wrote about Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Okay.
So this is from the Final Call newspaper. This is volume 42, number 32, May the 16th, 2023.
This is the special.
Yeah,
special edition.
Yeah. So
just before you read them, we're just going to touch on just a few bits and pieces from the paper.
Yeah.
Just so you get a feel of it and get an idea of who this special human being, the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan, is.
That's right. So this is what our brother Harry Belafonte says about the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan. The only one who speaks outside the system is Farrakhan. He's captured the hearts and the imagination of millions of young Black people because he's outside the system. The rest of us are in the system. All those young civil rights leaders, all those great leaders, whether it's Jesse Jackson or John Lewis, we're all in the system. We're in the Congress, we're in the government, and we're playing their game. We have to be re-elected. We have to aspire to the presidency. We are the chief of the army. We have all these titles, but we've lost our humanity, we've lost our vision, we've lost our culture.
See, I mean, that statement in and of itself is just so deep.
That's right.
It's so deep. I remember when we were talking about Magufuli, the former president of, I think it was Tanzania, the brother who was holding out against these experimental vaccines, and Magufuli. And you see, dear family, what I said on that occasion was, see, unfortunately for that brother and for so many of the politicians in this world, be you a politician on the continent of Africa, or be you a politician in North America, in that particular system, or be you a politician in the United Kingdom, you're still playing politics within a system that has been set up primarily by those who currently dominate our planet and who rule this world. See, so you're playing within a playing field that's been set for you by your enemy. So you can't win within that framework, which is what Harry Belafonte is saying. And, Harry Belafonte here has been a very, very honest person by pointing out the fact that, irrespective and regardless of whatever position you may hold in this world, however important you may think you are, however many medals you may be wearing on your chest from the various wars that you've taken part in on behalf of these systems, primarily European dominated systems, you are still only playing somebody else's game. It didn't matter that Barack Obama became the president.
No.
He was the president, the CEO, the chief executive officer of white supremacy sitting in the White House. You just got to understand this. And so when Harry Belafonte says that the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the only one who is speaking outside the system to the system, that speaks volumes.
That's right.
That's very, very powerful.
And it takes a lot of courage to speak out, especially in his position.
Yeah, it takes tremendous courage to operate like that, because you see, again, one of the reasons why so many of our people won't do what the minister is doing is because they don't feel that they can survive by what they say, you can't bite the hand that feeds you. Imagine, you see, so there's this toothless approach to our liberation, where we won't buy anything, because at the end of the day, we
We're
are
all
looking
on
for our
Satan's-
next meal.
Yeah. We're all on Satan's payroll.
You see? And so, you know, dear family, this is it's so deep. Actually, what I'm going to do, Sister Claudia, I'm going to put up something so that we can actually have a look at some of the images from the Final Form newspaper as we go along. That way, I think that would be helpful. Okay, so, and then I could also, you know, I just wanted to show the brothers and sisters this beautiful picture of the minister. I hope you can all see that. This is the minister. Imagine, you know, he came into the nation around age 22, around that kind of thing. Imagine all of those years. And, you know, I can't blame you who are watching the Imagination show this evening if you don't know. And also if you may even have some negative views about the minister, because so much negativity has been said about this man that you wouldn't know of the goodness and the beauty and what he's actually done for and on behalf of our people. For and on behalf, I can speak personally for a whole week and not run out of beautiful things to say about how he's influenced my life and changed my life. And if it wasn't him, dear family, I'm telling you, I would not be sitting here right now in front of this camera, speaking the way I'm speaking, being able to articulate myself in the manner in which I'm doing. It's because of the teachings that I got from this man that has enabled me to be attempting to do what I'm attempting to do today.
And guys, also, just to add to that, it was how Minister Farrakhan speaks about the young that made me see, although I'm one of the young as well, but made me see differently how to view when we see our young brothers, especially on the side when they're doing their drugs or they're vaping, or what's that other thing with the...
Well, it's vaping, isn't it?
No, but that,
oh, you mean
the decorators.
Yeah, what is it? It's not even decorators,
What is it?
you know, they use it for cakes and for whipped cream, for spraying the whipped cream and stuff like that. Those canisters.
Yeah, the canisters, yes.
It's a particular gas that they're sucking into their lungs that they used to blow up balloons and stuff like that.
Yes, but it was, you know, through the teachings that I don't condemn our young when I see them doing particular things. I'm just going to read another quote from the Final Form.
Yeah, but just before you do that, but just to say that, I mean, for you, I think it goes even deeper, because as a result of listening to the minister, were you not influenced sufficiently to actually start a school for our children?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, so
well, that's another story. That's because I hated school. The day I left school was the best day of my life. Well, apart from joining the nation and having my children, but oh my God, that day I left Satan's school, I said I would never want my children or anyone's child to go through what I went through. I hated school. And then in 1995, we started our own school for 2 to 5 year olds. Because the earlier you start, the better.
Yes.
Because too many times we give our children silly things, wasting their years, just giving them foolishness, when you can actually give them real, tangible things to learn, because they just pick up things just like that.
Very quick.
I remember Sister Ava Muhammad teaching that you can, is it by the age of 7 they should know about at least 4 languages?
Yeah, I mean, you see, again,
it's so much.
Yeah, I mean, again, look at where we've been brought up, beloved. Look at how we've been schooled. So we think that, you know, certain things are impossible
Yes, they're not.
before a particular
That's
age,
right.
but it's just not
That's
like
right.
that.
That's right.
You know, you go back to the ancient Egyptians, go back to our black family then, you know, I think Tutankhamun, he became the king when he was 17.
Yeah.
You know, what I'm saying is that people were graduating from the higher schools of learning at
a young
six
age.
and 7 years old,
Yeah.
because it's not how they've designed it in this world, that it takes you all of this time to learn basic foolish stuff, because they combined with all of that is just pure cartoon culture and madness.
Fake, everything fake.
You know.
I remember the minister saying that by the age of 12, a child should be able to take their exam.
Yeah, but and again, remember, by the age of 6, you should know what you want to be in this world. How many children at 12 and 11 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15?
Hold on.
And you ask them, what do you want to be? I know what you're going to say.
Get a child. Ask somebody at 70 years old.
What do you want
40 years old.
What do you want to do when you grow up?
I don't know. And that's a horrible feeling when you don't know your gift.
Yeah, because you don't know yourself.
That's
if you don't know yourself, then you don't know what you really love.
That's right. What were you born
to do? Yeah. That's a question that the minister said to us many years ago, that we must discover what we were born to do. And when you go on that search and you discover what you were born to do, and you do it, oh man, it takes your whole life to a different level. Yeah. Go ahead, sis.
You're going to hear a little bit of noise. I just have to take this chair a minute. Okay. So sorry for the noise.
Okay.
Right, so I'm going to read this article. This is what really made the change for me in how I view our young people. So this is written by our sister Anisa Mohammed, and she's quoting what Minister Louis Farrakhan said. And this, okay, hold on. Minister Farrakhan says, our young people represent the strongest and the best generation that we've ever had. I'm going to read that again.
Yes. This is the youth of today.
Yeah, today. Right? What you see them doing and everything.
Yeah.
Our feisty children giving us lip back, doing all kind of madness. But I'll read this again. Our young people represent the strongest and the best generation that we ever had. They're not the wisest, but they are the best because they are fearless. The minister said during an interview on The Breakfast Club in 2015, when you see fearless young men and women, that's the generation that God's hand is on, because that's the generation that will fulfill the promise of the ancestors who died struggling for true freedom, justice, and liberation. The young are the generation that will deliver on that promise with the right leadership, he stated. That's so key. And this is what made me think, okay, well, I know I don't know. I know the minister knows through the guidance, so I will follow that. And that just gives you a whole different view on how we view our young, because they've been thrown away.
Yeah, and it's a real problem, beloved. It really is a problem in the sense that, you know, I observe nowadays so many of the young people who it's clear that there is an estrangement between the youth and the elders.
That's right.
And that there isn't a relationship there. And I'm talking about even within families where the young people do their thing.
That's right.
And the older people do their thing. But there is no correlation, there's no relationship. But that's not by accident.
No,
that's by design. You know, there's been a deliberate forcing of an idea of a youth culture that's separate and different to being an adult. And you know, this has really been promoted big time, and that gap has to be bridged. This is what Bob Marley again talked about when he talked about filling that generation gap, because a generation gap represents a gap that then causes division, and it causes us to lose that principal tradition. I don't really always like to call it African tradition, but it's a tradition among the original people that says old men for counsel, young men for war. In other words, the young men and the young women are supposed to go to the elders for guidance so that the young people don't have to make unnecessary mistakes.
Yes.
But what's happened now is that the young people are not really getting any guidance from the elders. It's the young people are guiding themselves. And even though the minister said they're the best generation that we've ever produced, there's a lot of mistakes being made because of the gap.
Yes.
And we've got to fill that gap, dear family.
That's right.
I hope you can all see the picture that's on the screen, because that's the foundation of the Nation of Islam. That's the foundation on which we stand. Go ahead.
That's right. Well, it just makes you look at the world. Why would you want to hate somebody who tells you the truth? That makes you better yourself. That gives you life. Why?
Yeah, but well, you say that, but you know, I was listening to the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan today, and again he was talking about this thing where they chose a thief over Jesus. You see, because you know this is a good man who was doing good things for the people.
Right.
And when he came into Jerusalem on that donkey, they were saying, Hosanna, Hosanna. They were hailing this good man. But then in the next breath, when the Romans decided to crucify him, they shouted, crucify him. Because again, we've all of us got to be very careful also of mob mentality, whereby if you remember during the so-called recent crisis, the recent pandemic, where all of a sudden, you know, some of us were turning against our neighbor because our neighbor refused to have an experimental jab. I mean, just think about what was going on. Think about the way in which people families were becoming divided because we were being swayed by propaganda. And, you know, now we're turning against our own family members or turning against our own friends and relatives and neighbors because, you see, this is the danger of the mob mentality. And we're living in a time, dear family, where many people have joined the mob. Many people. And so don't be surprised that a man is hated without a cause. And this is what I was saying earlier on about the minister, that, you know, so many of you have been booby-trapped by the lies that have been told about this man, that when you hear his name, when you see Leo Muhammad or Claudia Muhammad talking about him in this way, you think, look at these people. Why you wanna hero worship or love a man like that? Because you don't know the man. You don't know nothing about the man. This is the point. If you go and read your scriptures, go and read about. They called the Jews of that day. They called Jesus a devil. You got to understand this.
Filthy talk, how they told Jesus to burn in excrement.
Filthy stuff. No, this is modern day you're talking about, where they've written in their special book, in their Talmud, that he's boiling in excrement in hell. This is how they talk about the righteous servant of God called Yeshua or Jesus or Isa, because he's got all of these beautiful names. But understand, dear family, that, you know, we don't back down one iota from what we have to say about this wonderful human being. And we can never tire of talking about him, because again, you know, what is it about the Imagination show that you're now currently fascinated by? Is it the logo behind me, or is it me? Is it me, the man talking to you, using language that you can understand? Is it Sister Claudia's? You may not be able to see her image, but you can at least hear her voice and you can feel her spirit. Isn't it that we are all trying to connect with our fellow human being, with our wife, with our husband, with our children, with our neighbors, you know? And don't underestimate how important it is to form a proper relationship with human beings. And what we're trying to explain here is about this human being and his final call, and why it's necessary for us to really begin to look anew at ourselves, at our neighbor, at our beloved, and form a new relationship of appreciation, because there's a scripture that asks the question, how can you say you love God who you've never seen, but yet hate the brother or sister that you see every day? Just think about that. Because we got so much hatred for people that we see every day, and yet we claim to love God. But when you break that down and really analyze that, then you know that you're dealing with a liar, a hypocrite, because you just can't. Not if you understand that each and every one of us is made in the image and the likeness of God. See, so who are you really hating? So this is in the middle, Master P.O.W.E.R. This is the man who came and started the Nation of Islam. He's got a jet black father and a white mother from the Caucasus Mountain area of the planet. And he was born in the year 1877 in the holy city of Mecca. And then on my left and your right, I think that's how it's going to look on the camera. My left, your right, hopefully, is the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. This is the black man who heard Master Farad Muhammad in the year 1931. He began his work in 1930, but most honorable Elijah Muhammad only got to him in 1931. But immediately, having heard one lecture, he knew that he was looking at the man that he had been reading about, coming from the east onto the west in the scriptures, that he was looking at God in person. And so this is how the Nation of Islam began. Then on my right, and hopefully your left, maybe, is our beloved brother, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who, dear family, he became a musician, a calypso singer. He was in his early 20s when he met a family member who invited him to the annual Savior's Day convention of the Nation of Islam. The minister had been searching his whole life for a father, because he didn't even know his physical father. He didn't know his biological father, who was a light-skinned black man from Jamaica, who the minister describes as a philanderer, a man who he was a player, okay, and he didn't stick around very long after making the minister's mother pregnant, and ultimately she had to raise the minister and his older brother by herself. And the minister got this invitation in 1955, went to the mosque and heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for the very first time, and he was absolutely, shocked at what he heard. But on the occasion when he first heard the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he was a bit taken aback by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's speech pattern, because he felt the minister had gone to quite good schools, and he had been studying Latin and English, and he was quite very, very well versed when it came to using good language. And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who had come up from sharecropping and basically just coming out of slavery, really, having been born in 1897 and coming out of the deep south, really leaving out of that area to come north to survive, because of the kind of brutality that was to be found in the south. And while the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was growing up, he literally could see a black man hanging from a tree, having been lynched. This is his experience. This was the kind of climate in which he was growing up. And so the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan, so the Honourable Elijah Muhammad's schooling wasn't the best. That's the point. And so his ability to speak plain language or whatever wasn't that great. He was able to articulate himself, make no mistake about it. I heard the minister describe him in later years as being the most articulate, not based on his splitting of verbs or not particularly putting sentences together in classical English or anything of that nature, but the fact of what the messenger was saying. It was the importance of what he was saying, not how he was saying. And this was the minister's first experience of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad at that Saviour's Day event when he was listening to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad speak, and in his mind he said, this man's not, he can't speak properly. And he said, as soon as he had that thought, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad looked up to where he was sitting in the balcony, right at him. And he said, brother, pay no attention to how I'm saying it. Pay attention to what I'm saying. And then you take what I'm saying and you take that fine language, that put it in that fine language that you know. I mean, and the minister said he jumped back because it was almost like the messenger read his mind. And that's deep. That's deep. We're not going to go too much deeper into that right now, but understand that you're dealing here with divinely guided men. That's my point. These are divinely guided men. And don't get spooky about it, dear family. Go ahead.
No, but I was going to say, not spooked. When we met the minister, I've always said he could read our minds. And I know the minister has said on occasions, I can't read mine. But the closer you get to God, the more in tune you can read Allah sends what you're supposed to say to people through.
Yeah, most definitely. But the minister confesses that, doesn't he? In the sense that, you know, he'll be asked a question, and he doesn't necessarily know the answer, but he said, by the time the question is finished, Allah puts it in.
Because sometimes you speak and you think, where did I get that from? That's how it is.
Yes. It's divinely inspired. It's divinely inspired. And that's why I said, you know, don't be spooky, dear family. We are all divine. If the earth is divine, we come up out of the earth.
Well, who are we from? God himself.
Why? You know, and I've heard the minister say this, and I'll say like him, you know, we really ought not to think too much of ourselves, but at the same time, we think far too little of ourselves. We really think far too little.
We're the extreme
of ourselves. You see, you understand that, you know, we live in a country in the United Kingdom where they have a House of Lords. I just want you to think. See, these are people who see themselves as lords, gods. That's what they're saying. Okay, do you know that during our enslavement, that they forced us to call them master? You know what master means? Master again is Lord. It's God. It's making themselves a God besides God. They made us bow down to them. Do you know there was a time when there was a law against the black man looking at a white man directly in his eye? And when a white man came into our vicinity, we had to lower our gaze or we could suffer death.
And on that point, that's why in the schools, they cannot take our children, because our children, we've taught our children, look at people in their eyes. And then that's when the school wants to say, oh, they're troublemakers, they're intimidating, because white people are not used to black people standing up ourselves.
That's right.
Not cowing down, imagine.
Yeah, and brothers and sisters, I hope some of our African families get to see this show as well, because, you know, I'm going to talk a lot more about Africa in the years to come, in the weeks and the months to come, inshallah, if Allah spares my life. But I've got to say to my African family, got to stand up, man.
Have to stand up.
You've got to stand up. This behavior of the West, the French and the British and the Americans and the Germans and the Italians and all of them who are still running rampant on the African continent and just robbing you blind. and taking and taking and taking, and then trying to poison you against Chinese and poison you against your own brothers and sisters who are coming from another African nation. This has to stop. And I've got to say, brothers and sisters, you've got to unite.
Yeah.
Africa has got to become the United States of Africa, not just in terms of an idea, but in deed, in fact, in concrete, man. Because that's when Africa becomes the superpower that it is. That's when Africa becomes the leader on this planet. You don't need nuclear weapons to do that. But what you need is unity of the African peoples from one seashore to the next on that continent. I'm saying, dear family, Africa is a sleeping giant, and it has to wake up now. Just like those of us in the diaspora have got to unite and come together and unite, because we got so much power in our unity and so much weakness in our disunity. This is very, very critical time that we're living in. Let me just say this about this headline. It says, "The man of integrity, determination with the heart of a servant." That's deep, man. And I wanted to say this about that. See, you got the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad Master, Father Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. But you know, dear family, to have a real foundation, it always takes 4 pillars, 4 corners. And here you got 3 men. Wait, who do you think is the 4th? Who do you think is the 4th that needs to be standing there to make a real foundation? The 4th pillar of this foundational stone, of this foundation that a brand new world order has to build upon, is you and me. You and I represent that 4th pillar. You and I, the unity of the people as a whole, represent that 4th pillar. We have our God. We have our messenger. We have our living Christ. We have our Messiah. But now the people have got to be able to worship that God. They've got to be able to stand up and have the power and the majesty and the integrity of that Christ. And they've got to be able to heed the word and the warning of the Messiah and come out as one, as a whole, in a unified way. And so I'm saying that don't just look at the 3 and, you know, stand afar off worshiping. That's not what the 3 are there for. The 3 are there to inspire us to become one. That 4th one that makes that foundation on which this brand new world order can come in. I hope that makes sense. A man of integrity, every one of us making up that 4th pillar have to have integrity, dear family. We cannot be dishonest people. We cannot be liars and snake-like people. You know, we cannot be a people who are untrustworthy. I'm talking about to one another. Never mind external forces.
Well, even yourself.
Yeah, but we got to learn to, Sister Claudia said, trust self first, and then trust each other. Have that integrity among us.
That's right.
Determination, man, come on. We got to, have you ever met anybody who's determined? Do you understand how determined Satan is in his evil? Do you see how he never retreats from any of the evil that he does, but he just keeps building on top of evil, on top of evil? Well, guess what? We've got to be the opposite, but in righteousness, in goodness. We've got to have a determined idea that regardless of what comes against that idea, regardless of who pushes back and says, oh no, you can't do that, that's impossible. Oh, black people can never unify. We've got to be determined. How many of you got married and had a determination to see that marriage successful, irrespective of the problems and the issues that came against that marriage? Do you have a determined idea? Do you have determination? You know, it's one thing to point that out in an individual man, but come on, dear brothers and sisters. Each of us have got to develop that. It's no good looking at a man like that and saying, wow, oh, that man is so determined. Oh, that man is full of integrity. That's you might as well go to a football match and cheer on Lionel Messi in his determination to dribble his way into and score a goal. Or you understand what I'm saying? It's a waste of time looking at somebody else's integrity, looking at somebody else's determination. Where is yours? Where is mine? We've got to cultivate these characteristics. We've got to cultivate these principles in ourselves with the heart of a servant. Do you know how important that is? How many of us are desirous of serving our people? Or how many of us, when we contemplate becoming an activist, contemplate becoming whatever we want to become, we in our vision, we see ourselves being served as the big chief, the big Lord and Master, sitting over the big table, and everybody's fanning us, and maybe he's taking care. That's the wrong idea, dear family. We got the wrong idea about what a servant is and what real service is. And I'm saying, I'm suggesting humbly that we need to look again and understand that there is no greater role that one can play in this life than to serve another human being, than to serve humanity. We must learn how to serve, and even to serve and not expect to be rewarded. I know what you're thinking. Oh, what are you talking about, man? Give me my money. That's all I'm interested in. Yeah, I know. That's sad. But service is critically important if we're ever going to be able to build this nation of ours. If we can't serve one another, if we can't take care of one another, we will never ever be successful at reversing the trend. We served the enemy under duress. We served the enemy under the lash. We served the enemy on pain of death. But now is the time to serve based on love. Now is the time to serve based on an appreciation of who we are, of who our brother and sister is. The minister said to us on one occasion when we went and met with him, he said, I know who you are. He said, when I see you coming, I start bowing. Look, man, the minister is the greatest servant I've ever known, I've ever met. Got a beautiful, beautiful heart, beautiful spirit. And I'm saying, if Allah blesses me ever to cultivate just a little bit of what he is able to manifest, I will go to my grave a happy man, knowing that I managed to achieve a little bit of that type of spirit of service that he has in abundance. Sister?
I'm going to go a little bit back and speak about Mother Samaya Farrakhan.
Okay.
The Honorable Minister Liz Farrakhan's mother. This is also from the final call, the same special edition that I was reading.
Okay. Some of the images on the screen. Go ahead.
Mother Samaya Farrakhan, a beloved woman. And this is a quote from the Bible. Blessed is the womb that bore you. That's Luke 11:27. Mother Samaya Farrakhan, the mother of the Honorable Minister Liz Farrakhan, was born Sarah May Manning on January the 16th, 1900, in the small island of St. Kitts in the British West Indies. She was a hard-working, strong and faithful mother to her sons, Louis and Albie. She was making me, this is now the minister saying, she was making me a man who would not be afraid of the consequences of telling the truth. God cannot use you if you fear men as you ought to fear Allah. And just saying that the one thing the minister said his mother would always beat them for not telling the truth.
Telling the truth. Not telling the truth. Yeah. And the minister said that they would get beaten more for the lie than for the thing that they did.
That's right.
It's the lie that she was beating out of
That's
him,
right.
because she told him that if you're a liar, then you become a thief
and a murderer. That's right.
See, one thing leads to another.
That's right.
And his mother was very, very strong when it came to the truth.
Standing up, standing up, regardless, to telling the truth. And that's what in our lives, when you know there's a God who sees all, then you're not afraid to, when you're.
Well, this is what we're taught in the nation, dear family. We're taught to tell the truth, even if that truth is against yourself.
That's right.
Come on, man. Think. Imagine being a truth teller like that.
That's right.
Where even though you know that it's not necessarily going to make you look so good, you tell the truth.
That's right.
Anyway.
That's right.
See, that's a person of high integrity. That's a person. Yeah, you might say that's a fool word. Yeah, okay. No, dear family. Truth is very liberating.
That's right.
Very liberating, and what it shows is that you are not afraid.
That's right.
See, fear is very constricting, and unfortunately, the vast majority of us today live our lives terrified of one thing or another.
The consequence.
Yes, of consequences.
That's right.
So, I hope you can see these articles. We were encouraging you last week to get a copy of the paper, the Final Call newspaper, because it's very, very powerful.
You learn so much.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so full.
Very full.
So full. There's so much information, and it's a breath of fresh air because of what passes for newspapers today. You know what I mean? Which is really pure propaganda. I think this is what you were reading from a minute ago.
Yeah.
Mother Samaya Farrakhan, a beloved woman.
Beautiful.
Blessed is the womb that bore you. Absolutely beautiful sister, isn't she?
Yeah. And did you want to tell the story about Mother Samaya, where she was trying to abort the minister? She tried 3 times.
Yeah, that's a heavy story, and again, I guess it in a sense speaks to why the minister is who he is, because the minister's mother was married to his father, but as I said before, his father was a player, he was a philanderer, and she wasn't very happy with him. She really wasn't. She loved him dearly. She really loved this man, this light-skinned black man from Jamaica, as a sister from St. Kitts. But he was, running around too much for her liking. And so he disappeared and they went their separate ways. But they were still married. And she found a man who was, more steady, somebody more reliable, somebody that
dark skin.
a very dark skinned man, and they had a child, Alvin. I don't know if like how we say in English, Alvin.
They say Alvin.
But in America, Alvin. It may be
Alvin, but
Alvin. Okay. And then at a certain point in time, the minister's father came back into the picture. And because she always loved him, and that was in fact her husband, but they had been estranged for I don't know how long, for a brief time, there was a reunion between the two. Nature took its course, and she fell pregnant with the minister. And so now here was this sister in a real
Oh, that was
dilemma.
a horrible. That must be
She
horrible.
was in a, and as I tell you this story, I just want you to think about Mary and Joseph, because it's the stories are not disconnected. This is what I'm trying to show you. You know, we love to look back, you know, in an historical kind of way. We don't understand how it relates to the present, and why there are so many similarities, and why those Jews in the scripture were mocking Jesus. Oh, we are not born of fornication. Oh man. And so she really began to fret, dear family. She was absolutely terrified that this baby was going to be born. The baby was going to be light skinned. The man she's with is dark skinned. She also wanted a girl, so she was really praying, hoping it was going to be a girl. Then she got so scared, she got so terrified that she decided to abort the baby. And in those days, there were no abortion clinics. And so she literally took those metal coat hangers, straightened one out, and attempted to abort him 3 times. And 3 times she tried to push this wire to pierce her own womb, and she failed. And after the 3rd time, she said, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and have the baby and come what may. And then all she did after that was just pray.
Yeah, she was forced to face the truth.
Yes, she prayed and she prayed and she prayed. And what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has explained to us is that all of those prayers in such earnest went all the way down into him. That unborn fetus, that unborn baby growing inside of that womb for those 9 months. And so the baby was born, baby came out high yellow, you know, was light skinned, and that was the end of her relationship.
It was pretty, isn't it?
Pretty little
like
baby, looked like a girl, the minister when he was born. Because she had been praying that it would be a girl and that it would be a dark-skinned girl, but it turned out to be a light-skinned baby looking pretty, a male looking pretty like a girl. But that was the end of her relationship with Alvin's father, and she said, I'm going to go ahead and raise my 2 children by myself.
That's right.
But, you know, it's just to appreciate, dear family, what went into making the minister, you know, and he has a particular character today that is unique because of the uniqueness of what he went through in the womb of his mother. And those of you who are currently listening to the Image and Nation show, if you are able to speak to your mother, I've been blessed to be able to speak to mine about the circumstances of my birth. And these are very, very interesting. I will share them with you one day. They are no less traumatic to some degree. But if you are able to speak to your mother, if you're able to ask her questions and find out what she was going through at the time of her pregnancy with you, I suggest you do it. Get as much information as you can, because this is all to do with you acquiring a knowledge of yourself. Okay, it's really, really important that we get to know as much as we can about the circumstances under which we were born, because it will give us insight into some of our personality traits, why we are, why we do certain things, etc., etc.
And that was another key point, what Minister Farrakhan had taught us and is teaching us how to give birth to a God. It's just so key. You just look at life differently when you're not just carrying a baby. Everything you go through those 9 months, that child will. That it's been recorded.
Yeah, if you're a young sister and you're listening to this, oh man.
Well, if you're a young brother and you've got a baby on the way, you treat that sister properly.
Yes.
You treat her properly. If you can't treat her properly, leave her. She's better off
honor
by
God.
herself.
Yes.
God
She's
will
better
help.
off with God
Yeah,
rather than with
in
some
abusive.
crazy
No.
idiot in her
No.
life while she is carrying a baby.
That's right.
I say to the young sisters, it's not difficult, but you can get copies still of How to Give Birth to a God. Visit the Final Call.
Yeah.
Visit NOI.org and search for these things because they are available. These are a series of lectures given by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Very, very powerful.
Absolutely.
How to give birth to a God.
They're life changing.
You can determine the character of your own child from the womb.
That's right.
This is the power that you have, dear sisters. This is the power that we have, brothers, to influence what's in the womb of our wives. Okay? And we shouldn't take these things lightly. All right?
The woman shapes society.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They always attribute this quote to Brother Malcolm, but Malcolm got it from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, where he said, to educate a man is to educate an individual, but to educate a woman is to educate a nation. And that's deep because it's the woman, ultimately, dear family, who is the first nurse, the first teacher. She is the nurturer. She's the one who shapes that child in the womb. And then when the child comes out of the womb, she's the one through her breast, through that milk, through her thought processes that ultimately determines what kind of child is going to emerge into this world. And we can literally make gods. And going back to what Sister Claudia was saying earlier on, you know, making children who are just phenomenal. We're taught in the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad that, you know, we can make that decision at 6 years old, what we are going to be.
That's right.
Who we're going to be.
Look at little 2-year-olds or younger, they know how to switch a computer on or your mobile phone.
Come on, you know,
on YouTube.
They master the technology.
That's right.
They're little babies.
Yeah.
So don't underestimate your children. This is it. This is the point. Do not underestimate your children and think that this current curriculum is the only measure by which you should measure your child. No, after time, these schools, Sister Claudia hated it in those schools, but how I hardly got into those schools because my life was so dysfunctional as a youngster coming into the UK that we ended up going into children's homes, what they call care. There was no care, I can assure you, there was no care. But going into care homes and then going into reform schools and then going into approved schools and then going into detention center and then going into prison. I mean, man, it was a hellish existence. But the point is that you can determine the kind of child that you have.
That's right.
And then that child in turn can start to make important decisions about its future, literally age 6. That's how powerful the brain, the thought process, the development of your child could be if you would only give that child the best possible chance and give that child the best possible start. And so, dear family, this particular page is dealing with Mother Khadija Farrakhan. This is the devoted helpmeet to God's servant. This is a quote here from the book of Proverbs. It says, "Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies." Proverbs 31:10. I'm going to read it again. Who can find a virtuous woman? That's a question mark. Just think about that. Do not lose your virtue, sisters. Don't let this world corrupt you and make you think that you are valueless and you should just go and throw yourself on the street, go naked in the street and let men treat you like a piece of meat. No, dear beloved sister, you are so precious. Who can find a virtuous woman, for her price is far above rubies, diamond, gold, anything like that. There's nothing as precious as you, dear sister.
Okay, yes, I'm gonna. So this is quote from the minister. This is what you are reading. Mother Khadija Farrakhan, devoted helpmeet to God's servant, and as you read, who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. Proverbs 31:10. And then the minister says, let me tell you something, brothers. If you're going to lead, you really need a good woman by your side. And I can tell you that I would not be who I am or what I am if God didn't bless me with who she is and what she has done to complement me and to help me make me. Even before Mother Khadija became a student in the class of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, she and I were like soulmates.
Wow.
That's lovely. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on his childhood sweetheart and wife of nearly 70 years. Wow.
70 years.
70 years. Amazing to be with someone for 70 years.
Look at that wedding picture. Look how young
beautiful.
They are. They're like two children.
Yeah.
They're literally like two children. And I think the minister said that she was 8 and he was 11 when they first met.
She had that little toy that you could look
around corner. That's something that made it look around corners. And she was looking at it and he was looking at the other end. Yeah. That's how they met.
That's
playfully at age 8 and 11.
Amazing.
And they got married age around 22. The minister was around 22. Okay. And they got married. Look at that.
Beautiful, isn't it? And they're beautiful children.
Beautiful family.
Yeah, beautiful.
And again, dear family, please don't listen to the language. I always use this language. I say family, family, family. But it can't be just a word that we use. We've got to rebuild the Black family. That's right. There's nothing more powerful than a husband, a wife, and children. Stop letting these people tell you that 2 men can be a family. No. That 2 women can be a family. That's right. That you can have 2 dads having children. Right. Come on, stop it.
The only time you have 2 dads, is your dad and your father-in-law. That's it, your other dad.
Yeah.
That's it. 2 mothers. Your mother and your mother.
Or maybe a stepfather situation, because there's been a divorce or whatever.
Yeah, but that's the only time.
But stop it, man.
Yeah. We stand with God, and this is what God says.
This is what God put together, dear family. He put together family of this nature. He put together marriage.
That's right. And when you look at it, this world hates God, because all what Minister Farrakhan teaches is from God.
All from God.
And this is what this world is showing. They hate God.
All from God. These are some images featuring the minister, some of the highlights.
With Jesse Jackson,
with Warifuddin Muhammad,
Muhammad Ali. Well, Dr. Dorothy Height, Ice Cube,
a lot of rappers,
Barack Obama,
Stevie Wonder. I was just thinking about Stevie Wonder the other day. We're losing so many of our greats. We lost recently Tina Turner.
Yeah.
Who else did we lose? Jim Brown, great Jim Brown. Great Jim Brown, great running back. Football. I think he was a running back, American football player. And Stevie Wonder is one of those real iconic greats. He's still with us, and we pray that Allah will keep him with us for a long time to go. But we're losing so many of our great people. Wonderful. Dear family,
Criterion.
Yes. This was that very, very special lecture.
And go back and listen to it.
Yeah, go back and listen to the criteria. Go back and listen to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in that garden, because again, that was a final call. This is the final call. This is what our subject is today. And it's saying that, if you listen to myself and Sister Claudia talking, it's not doom and gloom.
No.
It really isn't. It's salvation.
That's right.
It's really about trying to achieve something great, but you've got to heed the call. That's the point. We've got to make a change in our current situation, in our current circumstance. We cannot be complacent and think that, things are just going to be okay. And again, I always like to quote my brother Bob Marley. He said, "Everything's gonna be all right." Right. Yeah. No, you can't just think that everything is gonna be all right. Everything's gonna be all right if we do what's necessary to make everything all right. You see what I mean? You can't just hope for the best. We can't think that we're just going to be able to meander our way through. One of the tasks that we have ahead of us is we have to survive the destruction of a world. And this world is going down fast and it's going to be destroyed. They're literally going to destroy each other in war. Okay? America is going to be broken in war. Britain is going to be broken in war. And we have to survive. But have you ever seen a disaster movie? Have you ever seen what survivors look like? Do you remember the Poseidon Adventure? Those disaster movies where the people have to come through something in order to survive the actual disaster? See, a survivor doesn't always look in good shape. A survivor may have broken bones. A survivor may have missing teeth. A survivor may be in really bad shape. But guess what? They survive. And so this is the kind of mentality that we have to develop to appreciate that surviving doesn't mean that you will be completely unscathed. Surviving doesn't mean that you won't have to go hungry. Survival doesn't mean that you won't go thirsty. Survival doesn't mean that you won't get your head bust. Survival doesn't mean that somebody won't try to kill you. But can we survive? How strong is our foundation that we've laid? Do we believe in Master Farad Muhammad? Do we believe in the most honorable Elijah Muhammad? Do we believe in the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan? And to be a part of that fourth pillar, do you believe in yourself? Do you believe in yourself? Do you love yourself? Do you love your own kind? The people that look like you? Can you serve another brother, serve another sister? Or is that beneath you and you can only serve the slave master and his children? These are the questions that we need to answer, dear beloved family.
I'm going to read something from that page that you're on. And this title is A Man and a Mission. This is from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He says, "I am so happy that God allowed me to be with you today. I am so grateful." And in that song that Stephanie sang, it mentions the gratitude.
Stephanie, no.
Yeah? It mentions the gratitude of the one praising God. God hates ingratitude. We have been the recipient of so much from God, and all he asks of us is a prayer and to struggle against the weakness of self to do his will. And that seems to be too much. It is so sad that if white people disapprove of somebody, we follow suit and disapprove. It's so cowardly. The minister has stood for Black people strong, defended them when the government attacked them, though when the enemy put pressure on them, they would renounce me, denounce me, run away from me. Yet when they were in trouble, they could call on me. I, like my teacher, looked beyond our faults and saw our needs. I never tried to judge you, and in brackets, as crazy as you are, because I love you. I just can't help myself. I was born to love. My teacher told me, like his teacher told him, take plenty, take plenty. I have taken plenty and I don't complain.
Praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah. Dear family, we are about to end. We're going to close out just around sort of like 50 minutes or so earlier, because this is a kind of pre-record situation for today. But I just wanted to read these words as well. It says, throughout his life, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has served as a beacon of light to Black and oppressed people in the US and abroad. Across a span of decades, he has faithfully been on his post as the national representative of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And he continues to serve with uncompromising faith. The minister has consistently preserved and as the minister has consistently persevered and has established relationships and friendships across political, religious, racial, and ethnic lines. He has delivered divine messages and warnings to practically every Black group and organization in the United States. He has spoken at churches, masjids, synagogues, college campuses, huge arenas, and outdoor venues, and in small, private moments in neighborhoods among the people. He is truly Allah's divine servant and guide among us. The final call. Dear family, believe it or not, take it or leave it. This is a divine man who is among us today. He is from God. He is the voice of God. He's speaking God's warning and God's deliverance words to us. And I'm appealing to you, dear brothers and sisters, take action while you can, okay? Take action while you can, because this is the final call. Go ahead.
And just to add to that, this is from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, what he said before he departed about
the minister.
He said, I want you to pay good attention to his preaching.
This is very important. Yes.
His preaching is a bearing of witness to me and what God has given to me. This is one of the strongest national preachers that I have in the bounds of North America. Everywhere you hear him, listen to him. Everywhere you see him, look at him. Everywhere he advises you to go. Everywhere he advises you to stay from, stay from. For we are thankful to Allah for this great helper of mine, Minister Farrakhan. Then it says, he's not a proud man.
Not a proud man.
He's a very humble man. If he can carry you across the lake without dropping you in, he don't say when you get on the other side, you see what I have done. He tells you, you see what Allah has done.
That's right.
He doesn't take it upon himself. He's a mighty fine preacher. We hear him every week, and I say, continue to hear our Minister Farrakhan. I thank you.
I thank you. Then just that last little bit there where he said, he's not a proud man, and when if he gets you across the river, he won't say, look at what I've done. He say, look at what God has done. Look at what Allah has done. And if you remember at the end of the Million Man March, imagine a triumph like that, where nearly 2 million Black men came and stood, and they even got fed up of listening to all the speakers that day, and they were calling Farrakhan. And the minister, what did the minister say? Did the minister say, yeah, look at me, look at me, I'm the big shot, look at what I've done. The minister said, to God be the glory.
Absolutely. Amen.
Praise be to Allah. Dear family, thank you so much. Look forward to touching base with you next week for episode 82. This is the end of episode 81 of the Imagination Show. This is the final call. Sister Claudia?
Thank you again, family. Please stay safe. Tune in to the Final Call Radio 24/7. Feed yourself spiritually because you are what you eat, not only physically, but spiritually. Stay strong. We love you all. Thank you once again. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.